Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Jarrell Mason, aka Jay Mason. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me, I have no stranger to the podcast, my brother from another of the Stop, Look, and Listen podcast, LeTroy Gardner. LeTroy, thank you for coming back on to Beyond the Album Cover, bro.
Oh man, I'm totally thankful as always to have a sit down conversation with my brother Jarrell. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good, man. How's life treating you these days?
Man, just adjusting to married life, man. You didn't tell me it was so difficult.
Hey man, I try to tell you. Well, Prince Father tried to tell him in Purple Rain, don't get married. But marriage is a great thing. Wife and I, we just celebrated 7 years. But congrats to you and the new missus, and wish you guys very happy success in your new chapter of married life. But make sure that you turned in your player's card for the I'm off the market card.
Oh yeah. First off, congrats to you for 7 years, you and the missus. It seems like every day there's something new that I learn about my wife, and we've only been married for 3 months. So I'm not sure what to expect these next 6.5 years to come. But yeah, the player card is turned in, even though from what I hear, when you have a ring on your finger, a lot of times that attracts women even more. Like they see that ring and it's like a magnet. So I'm still gonna stay strong. I'm committed to this and just looking forward to starting a family.
Yeah, it's definitely all sales final, but the one thing I will say is enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, and just know that you have a partner for life. Because when they say for sickness and health, for richer and for poor, for death do us part, that's what they meant.
Yep. Yep. You take those words seriously. And that's what me and my wife we're committed to that. We're committed to each other. And I'm marrying a Nigerian, so I received a lot of threats. So if I mess up, they say they're coming for me, the family. So I'm gonna I'm gonna behave myself.
Mhm. Now, since you said that you married into a Nigerian family, I'm sure during the ceremony was there a lot of Afro beats that was being played.
Well, we had two weddings. So Friday night was the Nigerian wedding. I had to dress up, had my red and gold agbada on with the hat. Um, we marched in. So I had a large wedding party. It was 12 groomsmen, and of course we're all scattered around the country. So we all didn't get together until the day of the wedding, and we started trying to choreograph some dance moves. And then the MC sort of made it to where we had to improvise because I was going to be in the middle of the group and they were going to come in. We all were going to do our dance, and then they were going to part the sea so I could have my little solo moment. But instead, they made me come out first, so I just got back in the club mode and did my thing. But yeah, it was. We had 4 hours of nothing but Afro beats. Me and my wife, we put together the playlist. Her parents, they wanted some of the older tracks that were like 20 minutes long. So we had to figure out how to trim that down significantly. But of course, we got into all of the recent Afrobeats classics, your Burner, your Wiz, just everybody that's tearing it up on the Afrobeat scene at the moment.
Right. And what's your take on Afro beats, which is pretty much the African version of their take of pop, R&B, rap in the US and just adding their own cultural flavor to it?
I mean, I'm always a fan of feel good music, like the essence, as far as taking us to a place um, of peace and serenity. I'm always a fan of that. That's why I love reggae dance hall for the most part. It's just like it's an escape from what we hear in America with a lot of hip hop, especially. So I just like being in the mindset of being in a tropical location with everyone speaking and smiling and having tropical drinks. So when I think of Afro beats, I get that. And eventually, It's in the plans for us to take a trip, me and my wife, to Nigeria. She wants to have a second wedding there for our anniversary. So that would be my first time touching, stepping foot on the motherland. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think it's long overdue for Afrobeats to go mainstream.
Right. So you think it'll have the same effect in the States like K-pop?
Ooh. Um, I think it's starting to trend that way. I've been hearing about how record companies they've been sort of shying away from signing hip hop artists because now their focus is on Afro beats. So as these major labels continue to turn their attention to it, I just think the sky's the limit.
Right. And the good thing now with the internet, with the world being so much smaller and everybody embracing of differences, is that you remember how back in the day when an international act would get signed to a US label, they would have to do an Americanized version of an album to appeal to the US market. Now that's not necessarily the case because Bad Bunny pretty much released albums in straight Spanish, BTS albums straight in Korean, we got Twice, and all the other groups from the K-pop phenomenon. So it's definitely beautiful to see everybody saying, "No, I'm not gonna assimilate my culture, my music to fit your taste. You take it as it is."
Yeah, exactly. And me being based in Miami now, I'm hearing a lot of, Bad Bunny and like Latin infused music and like of course I'm not understanding what they're saying, but just the rhythm is just captivating to the point where yeah, you're looking at beautiful women, you got the palm trees in the background and the music is pulsating and I there's no way you cannot feel that heart thumping and yeah, I love it, I love all of it.
Right. And speaking of Miami, you mentioned how with the big Hispanic population down there, you have reggaeton, a lot of Latinx who are booming. You could pretty much make a good living touring in certain demographics where you have your concentrated demographic to where you could be able to make good money and do a whole tour within a certain region. Now, seeing how when the Latin pop explosion happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, then with the birth of reggaeton, everything that came after that, you're seeing like you were mentioning Bad Bunny, we had Daddy Yankee, Luis Fonsi, J Balvin. We could go down the list of all the acts that came out in the last 2, 3 decades that benefited from that explosion, and even further back with Gloria Estefan, Tito Puente, and the list goes on and on. All the acts that paved the way for the Latin boom.
Oh yeah. And I mean, shout outs to Daddy Yankee. He made a major announcement recently as far as saying he's transitioning into um, faith based music. So shout outs to him. He's been like you said, he's been in the game for 20 years because it's been what like 2004, 2005 when
Mm,
reggaeton really exploded.
mm. Yeah, so maybe we'll get a Daddy Yankee and LeCrae collab.
I mean, I would, like I said, I'm sure the vibe is still going to be there. He's still going to, like, that hit making ability isn't going to cease. Even like I heard, which I'm sort of transitioning somewhat. Um, Mace, he dropped 50 Cent had posted a freestyle of him recently where uh, he was spitting probably harder than ever. Obviously tied to everything going on with Diddy at the moment, but I mean, just because someone becomes religious and they sort of try to deviate from the content they were once making, I don't think it's going to impact them creatively. They're still going to put out the heat.
Yeah, so he channeled Murder Mace. And if you don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
definitely look that up. Of course, you know the history between Mace, Cameron, grew up together, rap crew, and all of that. And they got their sports show on and popping. Now, you mentioned Diddy and everything that's going on, and how everything is coming to light with, what's been going on behind the scenes, and what's your take on now that receipts for industry figures have been brought up, and that people are now starting to say, okay, we're going to take this seriously and not brush it off and really listen and respect the victims.
Yeah, like we talked about on the Good Old Boys, we obviously broke down the 35 pages in the civil suit that Cassie put out, and it was a lot of behavior that honestly I'm not surprised. I think that it's a systemic issue, not only the music business or entertainment. I think in a lot of cases that's just something that um, back in that era that men did. Like they they felt zero guilt when it came to going to a high school or going to a mall or even going to a store and seeing someone working a drive through or being their restaurant server and being attractive and hollering, and even if they're clearly under the age, they're still going to pursue it. Like I know that it was mentioned with Tyga, he was red shirting Kylie Jenner per se, but I just think that it was something that everyone got away with, and um, now we're in a day and age with the Me Too movement where all those receipts are being cashed, and deservedly so. Um, the take advantage of these young girls, when they're 15, 16, 17, 18, trying to get their career off the ground, and you're a powerful mogul or you're a powerful producer. Um, yeah, I just think it's just nasty and disgusting. And R. Kelly wasn't the only one 4 or 5 years ago when his judgment day came, and Diddy won't be the last one after this situation runs dry. It's just a long line of behavior that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, it's like the dam has broke, and everybody that was participating in that is going to get their comeuppance. Because when you think about it now, how back then probably a lot of underage girls were going backstage to some of these shows, and ID probably wasn't getting checked to make sure that they were of age. And then when you think about some of the songs back in the day that now would be clearly inappropriate, like BDP 13 and Good, Ronnie's
Mhm.
rap verse on Do Me, Tony's
Rick
26
James, 17.
1.5. Yep. High Five, Just Can't Handle It, talking about I was only 16, she was 25. So pretty much
Mhm.
grooming. So it's just pretty much like you said, where the day and age where that type of behavior would not be tolerated. It was not tolerated then, but it's just now we just got a bigger light on it, and more people are aware and paying attention.
And the crazy thing is, so say like if I'm 16 or 17 and like you said, a grown woman that's 25 is interested in me, like we would get saluted for saying that we have a 25-year-old on our resume when we're 16 or 17. It's obviously frowned upon when it's the other way around. So there's a huge double standard there. I'm not sure if, I mean, say like when I'm 17 and I'm trying to think of someone that's about 7 or 8 years older than me. Um, Random name. So say um like a Mariah Carey, just off the top of my head. Mariah Carey was interested in little old LeTroy from Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm gonna be on top of the world, and I'm gonna probably tell everybody. So I mean, that's why when the roles reverse, like when a Gloria Velez is, dating a famous R&B singer, of course all of that's going to come out. So I just think adults need to be more cognizant of their behavior, and like why would you risk that? Why would you risk one night over your hard work building your career? Like it's not worth it to me. There's
Right.
plenty of women.
Yep. There's plenty of women out there that is of your age, and of course, Aaron Hall, "Don't Be Afraid" is another song you definitely listen to differently now, knowing the backstory behind that record.
And it's even I'm uncomfortable even mentioning their names. That's why that's why I just said a famous R&B singer because it's like it's just we love the songs. Like I love "Don't Be Afraid." I have the Juice soundtrack, the production on it. I love the song, but it's just like oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
the
and
lyrics on it is just like he's incriminating himself.
yeah, definitely cringeworthy, and especially with the guy from Chicago, his music I definitely, can't listen to, especially after everything that's came to light, and how I'm glad now that he finally got served justice. He's under the jail for what he did, and that the women who were victims of him can now start to piece their lives back together slowly but surely, and to, try to move forward based on the trauma, that it went through with him.
Yeah, and it's still something that I can't fully understand is like there's a lot of adults around these artists. Like there's no way that he secretly has access to high school girls without going through security or even people like managers and publicists that are around him. Like all of these people are just as guilty. Like how can you just keep your mouth shut for all of these years? Bodyguards, like you're just as guilty as him, even though you didn't physically commit the act. You're seeing a crime being committed. Like to me, it's just there's no excuse for it.
Right. And with this transition, we're going on the lighter side of things. Intro, they just released a documentary called Intro Music, Rhymes, and Life on the Indaflix YouTube page. And there's pretty much a documentary showing, their rise and their end, which was cut short due to the untimely death of the late Kenny Green. And what was your take on Intro, and how, at least for me, I feel that they're one of the most underrated R&B groups to come out within the last 30 years. I mean, their cover of "Ribbon in the Sky" by Stevie Wonder, one of the best Stevie Wonder covers I've heard.
Mhm. I mean, shouts to Buddy and Jeff, and rest in peace to Kenny. Yeah, when they released that first album, I was all up on it with "Come Inside" and, like you said, "Ribbon in the Sky" and funny how time flies on the second album. It was just hits to me. It just represented that sound. But Kenny just had a way with his songwriting ability that he just expressed himself in this unique way, and of course, it rubbed off on the artists that they worked with. Mary and um, they worked with SWV as well, didn't they?
I believe so, because they were signed through Untouchables. Shout out to DJ Eddie F and that
Mhm.
whole camp, with as producers and songwriters, and in turn for them being signed to Untouchables as producers songwriters, that they were to get a deal at a major label, and that's how they ended up getting their deal with Atlantic. So there was already a buzz with Intro, because there were already songs on the radio, all the stuff they did for Mary, like Reminisce, No Limit, You Don't Have to Worry. So the industry was ready for Intro, and once they hit strong and hard with the debut album.
Yeah, and, and I'm not sure why the second album didn't receive as much attention. And that's something that always seems to be the case with the music industry. It's like you have a group that put out amazing work on their debut, had like four or five hits on it, and then you wait a few years, and then they drop the second album, and like the marketing isn't there. The first single gets a little bit of buzz, and then the rest of the album, for the most part, kind of just disappears. And I just feel like there was a lot more gas in the tank when it came to Intro. I know that that Kenny he worked with Cam, and he did some work with Ashanti as well before she signed with Murder Inc. But um, intro in my mind are legends, and Jeff and Buddy should still be in the studio producing for other artists.
Right, I definitely agree. I had a chance to interview Buddy, and he had told me that originally "Let Me Be the One" was supposed to go on "What's the 411" for Mary J. But what ended up happening was, I believe they had already turned the album into Uptown MCA, and once that was done, they decided, hey, let's go ahead and let's cut it on ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, what's the 411? Which is this is something that we're gonna do here with Forecast Media. We're going to probably do something with 5 mic R&B albums. It's still an idea that's dangling in my head how we would execute it, and I definitely want you to be a part of it because, as I've said plenty of times, you're the encyclopedia. You know everything. So we definitely want you on. But I think it'll be a process where we have like 4 or 5 people just talking about these 5 mic R&B albums and why it stood the test of time, their favorite tracks on it, and then maybe like where the artist went from there, whether they were able to duplicate that success or in some cases like D'Angelo have to take like a 10-year hiatus, between releasing something else. So that's that's something that I definitely want you to be a part of.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll definitely talk more offline about that. Now, with hip hop being in its 50th year this year, it feels like it's ending 2023 with a bang. We're taping this as of December the 11th. Last night on December the 10th, they aired Grammy's Salute to 50 Years of Hip Hop, which was curated by Questlove, and it ended up being a big celebration of hip hop from golden era to present day. And for the first time in decades, really, I believe, yeah, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince on stage together. Now, originally, Questlove wanted to do that for the Grammys Hip Hop Medley back in February, but Will was, I believe, down in Miami filming Bad Boys 4 and couldn't get off set in time in order to do the tribute. So definitely better late than never.
Mhm. Yeah, salute to Questlove and the Grammys for um, their part in celebrating 50 years of hip hop. I know that uh, what was it, like a 15-minute set during the Grammys this past year where they pretty much brought out a who's who of performers, but a lot of people felt left out, and the BET Awards and MTV Awards, and Nas, at Yankee Stadium and plenty other celebrations. They tried to fill in the blanks. But I think the show last night, which I wasn't able to see, I think having Will and Jeff on together is, you know, they're forever tied to the Grammys. They're the first hip hop artist, rap artist to win a Grammy. So to me, that was the platform that should have been able to get Will and Jeff together to perform.
Right. And to see how it came full circle to where when the Grammys first recognized rap, a lot of them boycotted because it wasn't televised. It was on the pre-TV version of the show. To now the Grammys say, "Oh, we gotta honor, celebrate this genre of music that started as nothing, became something, and it's the world's most listened to genre of music." To where when you go to any foreign country, most don't know English, but they'll
Mm,
know 50 Cent, Drake, J. Cole, or Migos record.
right. Yeah, so Art Basel just took place here in Miami over the weekend, and I was able to attend a talk by Lenny S., who works for Rock Nation. He's been tied to Jay Z's hip for 30 years almost. And along with the talk, there was an exhibit on the 50 years of hip hop. And then they also had a graffiti exhibit next to it. So I was able to just walk around and, just see so much rich history of the culture over the last 50 years and, take a lot of pictures and, just marvel at, where this culture has come from and where it's headed next. And it's just mind blowing that, there's something that even me as a kid, 7, 8 years old, listening to uh, Big Daddy Kane and Run DMC and Special Ed and Salt and Pepper and NWA, stuff like that. Where it is now, to where a lot of the artists are just their own entities. Like you have hip hop that hip hop artists that are politicians. You have hip hop artists that have part ownership in sports franchises. You have them launching headphones or having their own sports shows. It's just unbelievable where we've come from. And then, just seeing how it is embraced around the world. Like if you're a little kid in your bedroom writing raps in a notebook, and then eventually you can hear your song on the radio, back then that was the accomplishment. That was a sign that I made it. Now it's like that's nothing. It's like hearing your song or hearing people knowing your songs in Australia or um, in China and Japan, or seeing billions of streams in like less than no time. Like it's crazy to me. And just how these artists from all over the world, what they're bringing to the culture. Like the biggest rapper in the world is from Canada, or like you said, like we were saying earlier, how Afro beats is it uses some of hip hop. It infuses some of hip hop into um, you know the content, and it's just crazy. It's just God bless you, Cool Hurt. You know.
Hmm. And we also got to give credit to those that preceded Cool Hurt that should be recognized and mentioned as also the forefathers of hip hop, like DJ Hollywood, DJ Eddie Chiba, DJ Jones, DJ Flowers, Disco Twins, and the other DJs that were doing their thing prior to Hurt. But of course, once Hurt started, it was like the Big Bang, where
Right.
he's the one that pretty much helped spearhead the launch of hip hop, and then of course what would later to come with Rappers Delight and how Sylvia Robinson, a woman, get this now, a woman back in the late 70s on Sugar Hill Records, put out the first commercial rap record, and that's Rappers Delight and Sugar Hill Records based out of Jersey.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, the way that the baton has just been passed, and it just becomes more and more contagious, um, and everyone just contributes their part to continuing to grow this. It's just something that I never envisioned. It was just like I was in my bedroom watching Rap City and Yo MTV Raps and recording songs, putting a little tape recorder to the TV speaker, and whenever a song that I wanted on my tape came on, I'm hitting play and record at the same time, and then listening to the songs over and over afterwards, to now where I can just basically get it on my phone instantaneously. I mean, it's just I just I'm just speechless at it all. At where we've come from, and I don't know who I would be without it. It's my identity. Like when I wake up, I exude hip hop. Like even if I work for a tech company, even when I'm in Silicon Valley, and being around all of these people that creatively or shaping the world we live in, I'm still going to exude hip hop. And when I'm in when I'm like in a meeting, is I'm going to speak with hip hop vernacular, to a certain extent. It's just the fabric of who I am.
right? There's generations of us that came up on hip hop, and I think we can also say that it's because of hip hop that President Obama got elected into office.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he rep Jay-Z, and he rep a lot of the Chicago rappers to the fullest. And I mean, he spoke like the way he would his movements. Like you could just tell that if he wasn't a politician, he would be in the middle of a cipher. He might have had ciphers going on in the White House and we didn't know about it between the basketball games. So
Freestyle
yeah.
Friday in the Oval Office. I mean, you
Yeah,
had, I mean, you had to be there for that one. If you don't know about Freestyle Fridays in 106 Park, it was a movement and it was a time to be alive. I'll tell you that.
oh yeah. And did you see the Rap City documentary?
Yeah, yeah, of course. What's your take on that?
Oh man, I think that especially when they moved from DC to New York, like it definitely kind of took the sting out of what Rap City was. Like Tigger kept it going to the point where, yeah, we want to see who's going to be in the basement. But for me, like my favorite era was Les and Joe Claire. Like to me, they just had the perfect chemistry. Of course, I was in love with Big Les, and we had her on the Good Old Boys back in the day. So shout outs to Les. But that was just my favorite era because Joe Claire could freestyle. He had the comedic chops. Les, was a choreographer and dancer, and she knew everyone. To me, that just repped hip hop to the fullest, and of course they had everyone on there from East Coast to the West Coast, to down in Jamaica. Like there was no discrimination. Um, I think I think once the time with Tigger ended and they started cycling out. I think it was Mad Links and a few of the other hosts. It just seemed forced. It's like we're doing this because it's been around for over a decade. But like they were saying in the documentary, all of the big names wanted to go on 106 in Park. And I think part of it was because it was a live show. It was based there in New York City. So it was easy for the artists to come on that show versus, heading to the basement. And I think the time that it came on, didn't it come on like 4:30? So that was when, well, it came on at what, 6 o'clock or 4:30?
I think Rap City came on at 4 or 4:30 because 106
Yeah.
came on at 6.
6. Yeah, so I mean, that was a time when kids are home from school, they probably knocked out their homework, and they just wanna sit and watch TV, so that was a perfect time programming-wise for that show. 4:30, a lot of times you're just getting home and you gotta knock out your homework, so you're not really able to catch Rap City all the time.
Because if you think about it, when 106 in Park launched in 2000, it was pretty much BT's take on, hey, this is what TRL is doing. Let's do our own version of TRL. And that was 106.
Mhm. Yeah, because, I mean, TRL with Carson, they were getting all of the boy bands and your Christinas and Britneys and some of the rock groups that were big at the time, like your Green Days and um, you know Travis Barker's group,
Blink 182.
Blink 182. Yeah. So groups like that, they were big during that time, and they mixed in Eminem, of course, and DMX and some of the major artists in the urban world at the time as well. But I mean, that was just an explosion within itself. Was TRL? I think that was like the live music show that brought that ushered in the millennium.
Right. Because if you go back and look at TRL, it was really one of the first early shows to really have big fan interaction, going to MTV.com to vote, calling the line to vote on your favorite record, posting your comments on why you want this video. So it was social media before social media.
Yeah. And I wonder, could that work today? Like, could we do a show like that today? And I had Esteban Serrano on the show about 6 months ago. He's a producer for Yo MTV Raps, and he worked with TRL back in the day. But I mean, I just wonder if that's something that we have the space for, or is it, TikTok and social media is just a monster that can't be tamed at the moment.
I think social media is just a different animal, and kids consume differently because they're used to everything coming at them in bite-sized bits, no less than 30 seconds. So it's going to be hard to keep this young generation's attention for, say, less than a minute, unless
Mhm.
it's packaged in a way to where you get your clip here, boom, boom, boom. Almost had to be like where the show would be. Remember how when they wouldn't show the whole video, they'll show maybe 1 or 2 minutes and then give a little quick sound bite, and then go on to the next. It'll probably have to be like that for the whole show based on consumption habits of today's demographic of teens.
Right. Yeah, kind of like doing like those 60-second um 60-second bits, 60-second commercials, like maybe having the artist introduce it and you know cut in for those 60 seconds, and then afterwards just talk about the video, where they can find it, promote it, and then move on to the next one. So yeah, like you said, everything's so fast paced. We have a short attention span. So yeah, I definitely don't. I definitely agree with you. I don't see it, being able to recapture that magic again.
Yeah, that was definitely lightning in a bottle, and how Soul Train was lightning in the bottle when it debuted in 71, how it was really the first show that catered towards African Americans, showcasing our style, our dance, our culture to the mainstream. Started off in 7 cities and then ended up spawning worldwide success and the Soul Train Music Awards, Lady of Soul Awards, and how Don Cornelius was pretty much smart to where I'm gonna take this regional dance show that started in Chicago, take it mainstream, and it ended up becoming to where it's still the most influential show in the world and still is the hippest trip in America.
Now, I think Soul Train could work today. Yeah, I think people do have a craving for live performances. You know, so I could see Soul Train working today, but yeah, like you said, Saturday afternoons, yeah, you couldn't wait to see who was gonna be on Soul Train, see who's gonna be talking to Don Cornelius, and um, seeing if you could figure out what was on the scramble board, and like picking up the dances from the Soul Train line, and immediately after the show trying to duplicate it yourself. Like that was something that was part of my wedding. I had to have a Soul Train line for my wedding. It was necessary. But I think that like so many careers spawned from just that platform. And I wish they would bring it back. I think due to the success of the Soul Train Awards, we can have Soul Train. It might not be I'm not sure if it's a weekly show, but maybe like, you know, quarterly, where we can get it, like specials, because I just don't know if there's enough artists that would render consistent viewership, but we need it, I
Right.
feel.
Right, because you also got to think about it too. Back in the 70s, 80s, and even when we were growing up in the 90s, how it was rare to see urban acts on mainstream shows and mainstream publications, and how
Mhm.
I say the tide turned, I want to say around 92, 93, because this is right around the time when hip hop at least in my opinion, really started to explode pop wise. Because, we had The
Right.
Chronic came out in 92, Doggy Style came out a year later in 93 by Snoop, Tupac, and then a lot of the records that were in the top 10, top 20 on Billboard at the time, a lot of them were R&B records.
Hmm.
So that's where I think mainstream America started to see like, okay, this is, something that we gotta take seriously. And, if we want to get this core section, then we got to make sure to book these acts on our shows. So by the time late 93, 94 hits, it doesn't really have that same pop like it did years prior when a certain act would go on Arsenio, because you knew that was the only time that you were going to be able to see them, because they weren't going to get on Carson, Leno, or Letterman.
Yeah. Um, yeah, like you said, there were fewer platforms where these artists could go on and be showcased. Now there's a million different avenues and even their own platforms that they could utilize. I was talking to my partner in crime Mario about how um, like hip hop interviews, like they're dead, and I in a way I feel like podcasts have killed it because now everyone's doing podcasts. They're all interviewing the same artist to the point where like we've heard this story before. We've seen a Fat Joe on a million podcasts. We've um seen them interview all of them interview Shaq. We've just seen everyone everywhere to the point where it's not like special the way the Breakfast Club was getting their interviews over the first 6 7 years. Like now they have a lot of different places they can go, which is good. But like I was saying, for us, it's sort of I feel like been a death knell of sorts, because a lot of them aren't necessarily uh, have that journalistic background, but they're going to go on shows with people they're comfortable with, and a lot of the times it's some of their fellow rap friends.
Yeah, it feels like the exclusive interview is dead.
Yeah, yeah, that is long gone. That is, that is rotting and decaying, and I think, but I think that's a good thing because we want our favorite entertainers to have a second or third childhood. I Nori was one of my favorite rappers back in the late '90s, and he had a good run, and I'm glad that he figured out like this is how I can sustain my career. This is something that I'm going to take seriously and provide an opportunity to some of these guys that haven't been heard from in years, to share their story in long form. So I love it as a fan, but I'm just saying it just seems like it's killing it because you know we're running out of people to interview. The pool is shallow now.
Right. It's definitely a straight direct to consumer model. How back in the day you had that buffer, whether it would be through a magazine, a fan club, or a certain journalist. Now with the internet, the middleman is completely cut out the picture, and you can go
Mhm.
straight to your fans and you get to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yep.
Now, I want to get your take on May the Lord Watch. It's the documentary that just dropped about little brother. Did you get a chance to check that out?
Yep, I just watched it a couple nights ago, because I had to wait until I had some free time and I could just fully watch it. And um, some of it I can vouch for, like living in the Triangle for 17 years, and some of it is like I'm not sure if all of it was accurate, but yeah, I love the group. I love them all individually and collectively. Um, they they basically embodied what a lot of us, kids growing up in the South, you know, that went to college but still loved East Coast hip hop, or, hip hop with a message, the backpacker type movement. They embodied that, and they they took what their big brothers, because that's what they were talking about in the interview. I mean, in the documentary, Fonte was saying that if there was a concert with um, these 4 or 5 acts, and then us, like, what would we be called? And him and Ninth, they were throwing out names and said Little Brother. If we were doing a show with a Tribe Called Quest and Slum Village and um, De La Soul and a few others, if we're on that bill, what would we be called? And Little Brother was it. And um, they just embodied the essence. They took, like, Nine took, um, the boom bap and sample elements that, Pete Rock and Primo, mastered, and he put his own touch on it. And Fonte, who's one of the most talented artists in the industry as far as being able to rap and sing, who Drake looked up to, and then you had the underdog. You had the underdog, Big Pooh, who like he said, he didn't feel like he was on par with Fonte and Shondan at first, but yeah, he worked hard. And to me, he was the one that embodied Little Brother more than anybody, because that's what a little brother is. A little brother is someone that, they're looking up to people that they idolize, and their dream is to be on par or exceed, the person that they idolize. And I think that's what Little Brother accomplished. And they did it right from our backyard. I was at many shows at Cat's Cradle in Carborough, North Carolina, because I live like 2 minutes away. And just going to the shows and being able to interact with the fellas, like, I mean, it was always love.
Yeah, and if you think about Little Brother, they definitely came out when social media was in its infancy. This is back when everybody was still on message boards and social media was still brand new. Facebook back then was called the Facebook, and it was only for college students. That's how old you are. But I think had they would have dropped the listening and the minstrel show, let's say maybe 3 to 4 years later, then I think they probably would have had a commercial success that they should have had.
Yeah. So that would be like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, because
Uh,
Listening came out in '03 and Minstrel Show, I believe, came out in
'05.
'05.
Yeah, so, and that was 2008, 2009. Yeah, I think especially Minstrel Show. I think if the listening was released earlier, I think that would have been more successful. If it was say like 2001, I think I think during that time, when you still had the labels throwing crazy budgets towards videos and hip hop in general, I think they would have capitalized, because that was when the roots was going platinum. Back then, like, pretty much everybody was going platinum. So I think they would have been able to, you know, capitalize on that as well. Um, I love the gangster grills that they did with Drama, though. I think that was pivotal, because, like they said in the documentary, Drama was used to doing gangster grills with Wayne and Jeezy and Gucci and, you know all of the mainstream Southern artists, that, for him to give them that look. I was happy. I still have it. I still have it in my collection. Like, um, a few of the tracks on there, it's like my favorite Little Brother songs. Like, the Flash and Flare joint. Like, that's my favorite Little Brother song. and it was on the Gangsta Grills.
Yeah, because there's always been a preconception that, conscious rappers are not real spitters. But like you said, once they got that stamp from DJ Drama and the Gangster Grills mixtape, okay, we definitely gotta take these guys more seriously. And did you happen to catch Drez's documentary that dropped on Paramount Plus? Drez from Black Sheep.
So I don't have Paramount Plus, so I guess I'm missing out because I still need to see that one. I still need to see the Milli Vanilli, and there's another documentary on there that I think I need to check out. Is the Little Richard one on there?
Little Richard, that's on Max. And Paramount Plus, they just released a documentary about the history of yacht rock, aka soft rock. I think it's called Sometimes When We Touch, something like that.
Uh-huh.
But the Milli Vanilli doc was really good. The Drez documentary, Black Sheep, was really good. It's pretty much talking about how Drez had gotten some of the last beats produced by Jay Dilla before he
Hmm.
passed away, and how he was putting together an album with those last instrumentals. And the crazy North Carolina collection between Drez and North Carolina is that his folks were originally from Sanford, North
Right.
Carolina, and then they ended up relocating up north to New York, like most folks did back in the day during the Great Migration, where they'll relocate from the south to the north or whatever other region of the country they were relocating to.
Hmm. Yeah, and Drez is good people as well. We had him on the Good Old Boys back in the day. So I mean, yeah, he's good people. So shout outs to him. Shout outs to Black Sheep and the Native Tongues movement. You all birthed us. Like I'm a huge De La fan. I had my medallion. Just I was in the concert at the concert at Neighborhood Theater in Charlotte. That was one of my first hip hop concerts was seeing De La, and um, they gave me the microphone while they were performing Me, Myself, and I, and he was like, they were like, sing that shit," and I sung the hook, and then I was trying to get the rest of the crowd involved, and
Mhm.
then I had to give the mic back. So, yeah, I love native tongues.
Yeah,
Shout
rest
out,
in peace, True Goy. Rest in peace.
yep, shout outs
Yeah.
to Dave.
Now with Miami, now this has been some of the gripe with the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Some felt like, hey, you're acknowledging the bigger picture, what was coming out of New York and what was coming out of LA. Saying, okay, you're not talking about what came out of Cleveland, what came out of Atlanta, what came out of Miami. So a lot of people were saying, hey, you locally honor what was going on in hip hop in your region. Have you noticed, was there anything going on in Miami as far as honoring, Miami hip hop, like the contributions of Uncle Luke, DJ Khaled, Slip and Slide, and everybody that's been involved in the whole Miami hip hop scene?
So I've been like bouncing back and forth between North Carolina and Miami. I think I heard that they did something while I was in North Carolina. So back in October, where it was you know Trina and Trick and Luke, and then they had some of the artists that from other parts of the country involved to kind of beef up the lineup a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's impossible to put together a show that encompasses everybody from different areas of the country, or that have contributed to the growth of this culture. I think that splitting it up is the way to go. Like all these promoters, they have access to these artists. Like you just figure out like who you want and put it together. I think that Rock the Bells cruise might have been the best lineup I've seen, that LL and Rock the Bells put together. I wish I was able to hop on that cruise because it was like 5 or 6 days, and it just included everybody from every era. Had artists from New Orleans, had your artists from Cali, had your golden era, had artists from the 90s and 2000s, had have some current artists. You have DJs from like your Kid Capri's and um, you know, Grandmaster Flash on up to today. So I felt like they probably did the best job when it comes to trying to include everyone, but I just think it's a difficult task.
Yeah, you definitely can't please everybody, but I thought they did a good job with all the celebrations that they've been doing this year for hip hop's 50th, and hope they do a Force tour too. Because if you're not seeing the Force tour, then you definitely missed out. It was, I think, Haley's Comet, because what they ended up doing was they had the Roots as the backing band. You had Jazzy Jeff, DJ Z Trip was LL's DJ, LL himself, and then depending on which show stop you went to, a certain act was do a surprise pop up. So when I went to see the show in Albuquerque, the surprise act was Bone Thugs and Harmony,
Mhm.
which was really
Yes,
dope.
I didn't do the Force tour because I had seen pretty much everyone on the lineup except LL before. So I'd seen Rakim before. I'd seen EPMD, The Roots multiple times. Um, I don't think I think Juvenile might have been on the bill for down here, but I've seen Juvie, so I just like I'd skip that one, and instead I bought tickets to see Tony, and then Anita Baker. So
Oh,
so that's why I missed that one.
speaking of Tony, they just wrapped the Just Me and You tour. What was it like seeing the original lineup together once again? I know it was their first time in a good minute that Raphael Sadiq, Timothy Christian Riley, and Dwayne Wiggins were all on stage together, and it seemed like the show was very well received.
Oh, it was amazing. They did like 2.5 hours. Didn't have an opening act. They jumped right on in. I think the first song they performed was "It Never Rains in Southern California," and then they just went through the catalog kind of chronologically in a way. Of course, they closed with "It Feels Good," but they did everything I needed to hear, like "Slow Wine" and "Anniversary" is my favorite R&B song, the 9-minute version. They did "Lay Your Head on My Pillow," "Let's Get Down," "Whatever You Want." Eh, they did everything, and then to start the second set, Raphael dug into his solo bag, so he did that for about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and then they closed out with the rest of their hits. But they still got it. I hope they allow people to bring their phones in so they can record it, because that was the disappointment. I couldn't like take a picture or record any of the performances, but um the chemistry is still there, the musicianship. Um they had LaToya London from American Idol. She was one of the tour singers. So when he did Dance Tonight, she sung Don Robinson's part.
Wow, which is crazy. Latoya London, like you said, mentioned, was on American Idol, and this month on Christmas Day, actually, The Color Purple, the reimagining of the Broadway version of The Color Purple, is going to be in theaters, and another American Idol winner, Fantasia Barrino, is reprising her role of Celie on. She did Color Purple on Broadway, and of course, she's related to Casey and JoJo, and believe Anthony Hamilton they're related to as well. So it's just crazy to see how all that talent comes from that one show. And another group that we know that still got it just announced that they're going to do a Vegas residency next year. Tickets have already sold out. Fans already brought airline tickets, merch, hotel fare just to go see Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, and Johnny, aka New Edition. So, what's your thoughts on NE finally getting a Vegas residency and them being able to show Vegas, like, hey, you got to give us the Usher, the Celine Dion treatment, because we gonna pack out those short run shows.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was a no brainer. Um, everywhere they go. And of course, that they tour in various iterations all the time, whether it's BBD by themselves or the group with just the five of them as Bobby or all six of them. So like we're always getting a taste of new edition in some shape, form, or fashion. But I think the residency, I think is Vegas is the perfect backdrop to hopefully get like 3-4 hours of nothing but new edition, then digging in the Bobby's bag, digging into Johnny's bag, BBD doing that thing, Ralph doing his thing, just um a show that everyone leaves sweating and out, losing their voices. I just think that it was a natural, destination for them. Hopefully they add more dates. I'm sure they will eventually. Probably schedules and commitments is why they only have a handful of dates to start off with. But um, I've seen them like 3 or 4 times myself, and it's I'm always I always have money set aside for them.
Yeah,
There's
they're definitely one of those acts that when they come to your town, save your money, you're gonna get a good show. And I want to get you out of here on this. We just talked about Usher and how his Vegas residency just pretty much reset the standard, and how I think Vegas is really going to look hard and say, "Hey, we go to Vegas too. We want to see shows." And the world's going to get to see that in February because he will headline the Super Bowl halftime show. So, what's your thoughts on Usher getting that coveted spot and his Vegas residency and how it pretty much changed the way I think Vegas view urban acts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like over the last handful of years, Vegas has definitely become more current and skewed more to um, getting this next generation, because it used to always seem like a place for retired acts or those that was like no longer putting out music. I think like Celine and Mariah, I think that might have started the transition somewhat. And now, like you said, with Usher and New Edition, um, it's the place to be. Like if I buy a property on the West Coast, it's gonna be in Vegas, because I just think that probably with a basketball team coming soon, got the Aces there, the Raiders. You got the baseball team will be starting there in about a year or
Yeah,
two.
the Athletics going to be moving from Oakland to Vegas.
Yeah, it's just a place to be. So, um, yeah, Usher, what 28, 29 years into the game, we basically grown up with him. Like we've seen him as the Mac at 14 to having it his way at 19 to um, you know, making it burn, and you don't have to call to confessions and moving mountains. And it's been a journey. Like if I was growing up in the 60s and 70s with Michael Jackson, that's what this is like, as far as this is somebody that's 3 or 4 years older than us, and we've seen him grow from a boy to a man, and hopefully soon a rock and roll Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
So
he'll definitely get his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just like how I feel New Edition will get theirs. It's not a matter of it's a matter of when they will get it, because there's a process to that, and there's other people that's backlogged, but they'll definitely get theirs. So before we wrap this interview, bro, any shout outs you want to give and tell people where they can find the Stop Looking Listen podcast?
all right, man. Like always, shout outs to you, Jarrell. You've always um, been to me at the forefront of this content game. You've been an inspiration for all of us. Continue to do what you do, and blessings to you and your family. Um, Shout outs to the other members of the Forecast Media team. There's way too many to mention, but I'll just shout them all out. Check out Stop, Look, and Listen every Monday on my forecast, and that's four, spelled numerically, FOURCAST.com. So check out Stop, Look, and Listen. I interview. Sometimes I'll get entertainers in there, musicians. Sometimes I'll talk to entrepreneurs because I like to, support Black-owned businesses. And sometimes I'll talk to leaders in the thought space. On Tuesdays, the Good Old Boys with myself, D. Mario Washington, Q Kittles, and Grand Wiz. We're back after a 3-year hiatus. It's great. I'm loving the fact that I can sit down with my fellas. We've been doing it for 14 years now, and just be the male version of The View. You can find us also on Facebook at Forecast Media, or Instagram, Forecast Media as well. And you can also check out the tech podcast that I produce for Postman called Breaking Changes. Season 3 will be coming back soon, sometime in like late March, early April. So, like I said, continued blessings, and check me out.
Yes, sir. And you can catch this interview wherever you stream podcasts at Facebook. Facebook.com/Beyond the Album Cover is where you want to go to stay tuned for everything related to the podcast. Thank you for everybody that's been supporting Beyond the Album Cover. And of course, we're going to have more heat coming for 2024. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you, round of applause for my brother from another, LeTroy Gardner from the Stop, Look, and Listen podcast, Forecast Media. LeTroy, thank you for coming on once again, bro.
As always, beyond the album cover. I'm not sure how I'm beyond the album cover, but it's always great, brother.
Yes, sir.